everybody, my name is Ardalan Pilavizadeh. A frequently question that you ask me about growing saffron indoors for 100 square meters. The first question that you ask me is what manpower needed for 100 square meters in growing saffron indoors? After purchasing the bulbs, you need to 5 people for cleaning the bulbs of saffron, for the sorting of the saffron and putting in the wooden box. For 100 square meter, 5 people you need to for cleaning and sorting and put in the wooden box. After purchasing the bulbs, that in the August or September, till the flowering in October, you do not need to very labor force. 1% it's enough for 100 square meters. Yourself you can manage. If you are a student, if you are have another job, you can beside this do that. 1 people, you can hire 1 person or yourself. Manage till flowering. During the flowering, you need also 5 or 6 labor force. 6 people for harvesting flowers of the bulbs of saffron and also separating the stigma from the petals, drying saffron, harvesting. 6 people is also enough for 100 square meters. And after flowering, you need to add the soils to the shells, I think 2 people is enough. After that, also yourself you can manage. Therefore, we have 2 stages of that. You need the maximum time that you need for hiring the labor force or the working the labor force during the cleaning, after purchasing, and during the flowering. During the flowering is very vital for you because during 10 days you have the flowering and 5 days during these 10 days is the maximum of the flowering. I think 4 or 5 days, this is the peak of the harvesting that you need. Also the 5 days of 10 days flowering, yourself and your friends, 2 people is enough for harvesting. But the 5 days have the maximum flowers that immediately should be harvested. After harvested, these should be separated, the stigma, because the red part and the drying saffron. Another question about what's the approx expenses of the full setup based on your experience. My experience about this, because I have the numerous trainers in the India, Africa, America, Gulf, and the UAE, in the Australia, because I have it, I have understood that is the very difference, the price of for the expenses that you need. At the first step, you should look what equipment. I do not want to talk about the building. Building is very completely different. For example, a building in the India, 100 square meters, we can build it with 5,000 euros. In US, we should build it with 20,000 euros. In Australia, 15,000 euros. It's completely different related to insulation. But this is very important. I would like to talk about the expenses that one of my trainers that asked me about the equipment. Your equipment is the shelves, in the chiller, in the boiler. In the country like India and UAE, you do not need to any boiler. It is chiller and air handling unit. Also, you should purchase the air handling and chiller. The air handling and chiller beside this for the India and UAE. I think if you live in the UAE, India, and Kuwait and the Qatar, you should, I think, near the 15,000 to 20,000 euros for the plus the air handling unit and chiller. If you live in the Germany and Canada, in the Germany, Italy, and the France, the good news for you, you do not need to chiller, because in October you should decrease the temperature. And this is a good news for you. Even with the 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 euros, it's enough for even you should purchase the air handling unit. If you live in the Canada, you should also plus the air handling unit. You do not need to purchase in the chiller in the autumn, because in the autumn, in the October, if in the northern hemisphere. But in the southern hemisphere, like Australia and South Africa, in the April or the May, you should decrease the temperature. But in the Canada, you should purchase the boiler. Boiler also 10,000 euros, 8,000 euros. The chiller is very so expensive. Okay, different countries different. It's completely different. In India and Algeria, the Morocco is not so expensive. In the Italy and in the Germany, in Switzerland, is very expensive if the air handling unit and chiller. After that, the shelves. For example, the shelves in India, you can purchase for 100 square meters because you need to 1000 kilogram of iron. You can purchase the iron for with 3000 euros. But in the Switzerland, you should pay 20,000 euros. This is very clear that the price of saffron in the country, that the equipment is very high. Also, the price of saffron is very high. For example, each gram of saffron in India is 4 euros. In the Switzerland is 30 euros. This is a very difference in the setup of the shelves. The most equipment is very important: shelves and air handling unit and the chiller and the machine that control air handling environmental factors. But the wooden boxes is not so expensive. I think it would be 1,000 euros, 800 euros in some country, 500 euros. You can provide the wooden boxes on the shelves. Another thing is very small, like for example a sprayer, thermometers, CO2 meters, like the cable, the monitor, the fittings, nozzles, and like the plumbing and like this, because the maximum price that you pay for the chiller and air handling unit. And another question: what is the worst case scenario might happen, and what's the plans based on the project happens? What is the worst scenario? The worst scenario is that you couldn't purchase the bulbs with the weight of the over 18 grams. The weight of each gram should be over 18 grams. If the bulbs of saffron that you purchase, for example, the 12 grams, 10 grams, 13 grams, even 14 grams, under 17 grams, this is very clear, you cannot be successful in the growing saffron indoors. In the first year, because in the growing saffron indoors, in the first year you will have the full of flower. The 10 grams, 12 grams, 8 grams, 9 grams, this is the bulb suitable for growing saffron outdoors. The people cultivate, and the second year, third year, fourth year. When the weight of the bulbs is very low, in the second year, in the third year, starting to the flowering. But in growing saffron indoors, we choose the bulb with 20 grams, 18 grams. The first year, we have the full of flower. This is the secret of the success. The bad scenario, you couldn't purchase the bulb of saffron with a suitable weight. Suitable weight under 15 grams. After that, the bad scenario is you cannot be successful in the growing saffron indoors. Another bad scenario that will happen if the country that is special for country very warm autumn. In the October, you have the temperature near 30 grams, 32 grams. Kuwait, Qatar, Emirates, United Arab Emirates, and also like India. In this country, you cannot, for example, the control of the temperature, because in these countries you should control the temperature in for example, the 12 centigrade, 17 centigrade. When you want to control the temperature 70 centigrade, due to the insulation, your bad insulation, your chiller that you couldn't purchase the suitable chiller from the bad company, the company is not famous, the company is not suitable, okay, your chiller doesn't work well, and you cannot the temperature. And temperature, for example, the 20 centigrade, 21 centigrade, and this is very clear. This is a scenario that will be. Next question is: how much saffron bulbs can be placed in 100 square meters? In the 100 square meters, if you have 4 meters for the height with the 6th floor of the shelf or 7th floor of the shelves, you can put the near 3,000 kilogram of the bulbs or 4,000 kilogram of bulbs if you have the suitable height, the near 4 meters, 3,000 or 4,000 kilogram of the bulb. But also is completely related to the weight of the bulb of saffron that you purchase. If the weight of the saffron, the near the 20 gram or over 20 grams, you can easily 3,000 or 4,000 kilogram of the bulb of saffron. But if you use purchase the bulb with a very light size of the bulbs of saffron and not heavy, for example, the near 12 grams, 13 grams, 10 grams, in 100 square meters, you cannot even put the bulb, even 1,000 kilogram of the bulbs. Therefore, try to purchase the bulbs with a suitable weight, near the 20 grams. The heavy bulbs help you that you have in 100 square meters with a high number of the bulbs of saffron. After flowering, can we keep
the bulb on the shelves, and if we want to transfer these 4 tons of the bulbs to the farmland and outdoors, how much land do we need? Mm, yes, if you consider, if you construct the extra the shelves with the iron, and also if you consider the height of your shelves in the 20 centimeters, you can easily, after flowering, instead moving the bulb to the outside, you can add soil and mix up the vermiculite or the best bed in the soils in the 3 months of the winter, and you can keep the bulbs throughout the year in your greenhouse. If you use the estrine fertilizer, you use the estrine the shelves, you can keep the propagation, and the bulbs inside the shelves can propagate. If you want to transport the bulbs of saffron to the outside, you need for 100 square meters, then you can you could put 4,000 kilogram bulbs. It needs the near 3,000 or 4,000 meters for 4,000 kilogram of the bulbs. Even some of my trainees, even for 1,000 or 1,500 meters, can cultivate 4,000 kilogram of the bulbs of saffron. What is the best time for purchasing the bulbs? In the northern hemisphere, like Germany, India, UAE, the best time is the August. In the southern hemisphere, like South Africa, in the Australian, the best time in the April for purchasing the bulbs. What is the reproduction rate? What is the reproduction rate? Because saffron bulbs, and need to buy bulbs every year. Is it necessary purchasing the bulbs every year? No, it's not necessary. You should only once a year purchasing the bulbs. The ratio of the bulbs of saffron is the 1.5, 1.4. If you in the first year purchase the 1,000 kilogram of the bulbs, in the next year you will have 1,500 kilogram of the bulbs. Even in the 10 years or 9 years, the bulbs with you and the propagate. The bulbs that gave you flowers gradually disappear, and the new bulbs with a higher weight will be appear. And next question, what does of the mentioned fungicide and insecticides should be used? And such as the propargid, methylthiophonate. My recommendation, don't use fungicide, thiophonate methyl. If your bulb is healthy and they have the healthy space, my recommend don't use, because affect in your analysis of your saffron. If you want to export your bulb, your saffron, the quality of saffron, is you need to analysis in the laboratory. The company, another country, needs to analysis, and affects in the kerosene, picrokerosene, and the saffronol, the factor of the determine the quality of your saffron. Also, the fungicides these days for 20 centuries. Nowadays, is anybody the standards factory don't use the fungicide or insecticides. It is better if you choose the heavy bulbs. You don't need to any fungicides. If you have the best control of your environmental factors, as I told you, it doesn't need to using any fungicide. And what does of the mention that fungicide I told you? What is the time of the distance between buy bulbs of saffron and flowering? What is the process of the flowering after purchasing the bulbs? Here is the 3 months. And how much first class saffron does this 1,000 kilogram of the saffron bulbs? Each 1,000 kilogram of the bulbs give you near the 400 grams dry saffron, the best saffron, Sargol, from 400 grams to 800 grams. Some of my training even harvested 1 kilogram dry saffron. How many grams of the dried saffron does each kilo of the fresh flowers gives you? Each kilogram of the fresh flowers gives you near 20 grams dry saffron. Can we pick flowers twice a year? These questions, I think the 98% of my trainees ask this question. Twice? How? This is my question? Not. This is the answer is very clear. No. How do you want to have it twice? In October, in August we purchased the bulbs. In October, the bulbs gave you the flower. After flowering, the mother bulbs that gave you the flower gradually disappear, gradually destroyed, and the new bulbs will be appear. And the new bulbs need to 3 months of the winter to propagation and 3 months of the summers to keeping to receiving the size, to getting volume. And September you separate these new bulbs, daughter bulbs, and these cycles need to 2 months later in the October. This is the distance between the flower is the 1 year. How you want to? How you can have a flower in twice? Some people try. This is propaganda. Unfortunately, I don't know why. This is very clear. If, for example, the twice each bulb twice flower only in the 10 days in the middle of the autumn. Yes, this is that we have the person I have myself also did that. For example, some of my bulbs flower and some of the bulbs in the middle of autumn, some of 20%, I didn't allow to creating flowering, to harvesting the flowering. For example, the 20%, for example, in the middle of the autumn when you give the cold temperature, and 20% I stored in the very dark, without 17 centigrade, in the very cold temperature, in the 4 centigrade, in this without this O2, without fresh, in the store. Yes, I postpone in the 3 months or 4 months instead of the middle of autumn. At the end of the winter, I receive the flowers. That the one bulb even once, but the amount of your bulb you can divide your time, but it's not suitable. My recommendation is better is the create and located in the normal cycle. It is better, but it's not Olympic game. The company that purchase your saffron don't pay your time of your flowering. Not, for example, okay, you twice, okay, I give you money. It is. And I always to my trainees say that it is better focus on one time, focus on the middle of autumn. It is better in the ones, for example, from 1,000 kilogram of the bulb. It is very good. You have a 600 or 700 grams or 500 grams of saffron instead of the 3 times, but each time, for example, 50 grams. All of the 3 times is the 200 grams, and this in ones is the 700 grams. Also, these bulbs with you it, for example, propagate 8 years. It is better focus after flowering in the propagation, not the twice a year. But in addition, the saffron is a dry crops. You can store it in the 1 year, in the 6 months, in the 7 months. For example, if you this is a mushroom, okay, this is very clear. We need to, for example, 6 times in the year because this is the spoils, will be a spoil. But the saffron is the dry, is the transport even the 7 months, the 8 months, some people 2 years, you know, it is the dry. You can store easily store it. Why you want to do twice? Twice it doesn't mean you have the more crops, okay? This is the cycles. This is the natural cycle of the saffron only once in the middle of the autumn. And the bulbs that gave you the flower, this is gradually destroyed. This is a very clear. Destroyed, and the new bulbs will be appear. And the new bulbs you can, for example, in the middle of the winter, the new bulb is very small. Need to the 6 months to getting the size. And next question is, can we pick twice how many square meters of saffron cultivation house is economically justified? Even at least 60 square meters is the economical justification. How much does it cost after for 100 square meters? That is a completely different. I told you in the previous questions. And for example, in the chefs in the some country is the 8,000 euros chiller and hair handling unit for 120,000 euros. I think you need at least to treat it, except the building you need to 30,000 euros for a standard for 100 square meters. And does giving gibberellic acid and oxine for this, even if you have, you can easily, if you have, you can control the temperature in the cold shocking. If you do not have problem, it doesn't need to using gibberellic, because gibberellic doesn't increase the amount of your crop. Only, for example, you can reach your flowers sooner than the time. My recommendation, if you can have a cold shocking, it doesn't need to gibberellic acid. Is it necessary by artificial light? artificial light, but you do not need to artificial light. Even if you have access to the sunlight with the window 50 by 100, 50 centimeters or 100 centimeters, at the end of your building, you can easily invite your sunlight. And put all of these questions, more than plus another question in my at the last page of my book. And the new category of my book that I'm sure you are aware, that added the company that sells the bulbs of saffron, because it's very important. The numerous requested for me, please add in your book the company that sells the bulbs of saffron. In the last page of my book, added with the email, telephone number of the company, the best company that sells the bulbs of saffron. And for purchasing my book, plus 5 days free online consultation from me without limitation, it is enough. Text me on WhatsApp 0098 935 825 3945. Thank you so much.